Welcome back to Everything But the Lesson Plan, the podcast where we talk about the parts of education nobody puts in the handbook. I am your host, Franchesca Thompson, and today we're talking about something every teacher leader must learn if we want to build strong schools, healthy teams, and thriving educators. Meeting teachers where they are, not where we want them to be, not where the system says they should be, but where they actually are. Because leadership without understanding, well, that's just pressure. And today we're going to talk about how to lead differently. You know, a couple of years ago, I think it's a couple of years ago, um, I got a coaching endorsement. And at the time when I was asked to do this, I really didn't want to do it because I was also in school working on a PhD. And so I was like regretting my choice of signing up for this coaching endorsement, but it turned out to be one of the best things ever. Sometimes we don't know where the road is going to take us, but it actually takes us somewhere that we need to be. And that's what happened for me when I was in that coaching endorsement because it taught me how to be a teacher leader and learn how to work with people with the lens of human first. And that's what they preached that entire year that we were doing the coaching endorsement. Human first, put people first, understand people, work with people, listen to people. Don't be so quick to judge. Don't be so quick to always give your advice. Just sometimes just hear what's happening, read the room. And so I loved this year-long process that I was in. I got to meet some great people. I was able to get some great tools. And so this topic and what we're going to talk about today is really about the leadership gap, okay? And what is needed for a lot of teachers, not a lot, but for some of our teacher leaders, okay? And for those who are wanting to go into that space, what is necessary to be successful in that space? Um, there's quite quiet tension happening in the schools across the country. Just quiet tension, right? New teachers feel overwhelmed, veteran teachers feel exhausted, and teacher leaders often feel stuck in the middle. And that's a hard place to be when you're stuck in the middle. You got to figure out a way to pull both sides in. So, we want to help, but sometimes we help in the wrong way. Sometimes we jump straight into fixing things and we try this strategy, use this classroom management system. Here's what worked for me. But the truth is, most people don't need solutions first. They need someone to see them. The praise, they need someone that's going to support them. And, I think about this article that I read. The article was about, and I'm going to link this article in the show notes. It was meet them where they are. And that meant closing the gaps between our expectation and someone else's reality. And in education, that gap can be huge because teaching is deeply human work. Behind every teacher, there is going to be a story. Think about your teaching experience, okay? Or your experience in education. What is your story? Those stories can be anything from I got a new baby at home, I got a sick parent, I'm dealing with student trauma that they carry with them. I'm simply burnt out from doing too much for too long. It could be anything. I think about some of the days that I had my stories. It was anything from I wasn't getting along with the coworker to I had some issues going on privately, right? And all of that had a space and place in how I showed up as an educator. And you need people who can lead during that time and think about that human first experience to help you get over to the other side. Leadership starts when we stop assuming things and we start to understand. So it's this thing called assessment versus judgment. One of the most powerful ideas from the article that I read talked about this assessment versus judgment. Judgment sounds like this: why can't they manage their classroom? They should know how to do this by now. The other teacher handled it better. And boy, them is some that cuts to the throat when you're comparing teachers to teachers. That's like the biggest no-no, right? And but I've still seen this happen in the education space. Assessment sounds different. Assessment asks, what support do they need? What's happening beneath the surface? What tools might they be missing? What is it that they need me to hear? Assessment collects information for improvement, but judgment, it simply labels the problem. Ain't nothing getting done with judgment. It's just, this is the problem, that's that. And when teachers feel judged, what are they going to do? They're going to shut down. But when teachers feel understood, you best to believe they're going to open up. So the article outlines several ways to truly meet people where they are. And honestly, these are this leadership skills schools rarely teach. And it's one of those things that if we learn how to teach this and if we make sure this is part of our school culture, it's just going to improve the school overall. So let me walk you through them. One of the things they talked about was listening to understand, not to respond. And this is a big one, whether you are at work or not at work. Think about how you handle conflict or how you deal with situations when you're in conversations with people and they're telling you their stories. Are you listening to understand? Or are you waiting to respond? Most leaders listen while thinking about their reply. So is that truly listening? And that was one of the things that they had us do with my coaching endorsement is I had to sit there and listen to everybody and write down the things that I heard and not coming up with any responses, just plain listening, right? There's an actual book on this as well. It's a really hard skill. You got to listen, and that means being present. Pay attention to the tone, looking at the body language, what's not being said, are the things that you have to think about. Sometimes a teacher doesn't say, I'm struggling, but you can see it. The other thing that you can think about is challenge your assumptions. Every leader has an internal expectation. They have an expectation on how the classroom should look, how teachers should perform, how fast people should grow. But those expectations often come from their own experience, and every teacher's journey is different. I remember someone came in my classroom years ago and judged the mess out of it because I had nothing on the walls. It was a new building. And I just had not gotten to that. And I was with high school students, and I'm not the most creative person when it comes to decorating the space. But I was like, this person is going to judge because there's not much going on my walls. But did they hear that lesson that was fire? Okay, did they see that the student response? Did they see we knocked out the state standards? Right? And so sometimes you miss opportunities when you come in with your own assumptions of what someone should and shouldn't have, shouldn't be doing. This person missed the entire message because they were looking at what was on my walls. And so as a leader, that should never be the case. Another thing you can do is watch your language because y'all, words matter. You may think you're saying something kind, but it's not. It comes off too aggressive, too strong. You may be one of those ones, well, I'm going to say it, I'm going to do what I do. Okay. But you got to think about the impact on that for other people. So instead of you need to do this, try what support would help you right now. Leadership language builds either safety or fear. Yep. Your language builds safety or fear. And once that is in a person's mind, who you are, if you're a person who creates a safe space or someone who builds fear, unfortunately, it's hard to undo that. I don't care if you turned your whole life around and you doing everything right. That person still sees you as how you showed up for them first. So you want to make sure that your language, what you're saying, and really this really comes with self-reflection. That is sometimes the hardest thing for people to do is to really self-reflect and be like, yeah, I could have toned that down. Okay, admitting your faults, right? That is something that people have to do with their personal life and their work life. But when it comes to language, always think of it as safety and fear, and you want to choose safety. Reflect back what you hear is another thing you could do. This is a powerful coaching technique, and this is something that they did teach us in that coaching endorsement. When teachers share something difficult, you say, so what I'm hearing is your feelings, your feeling is overwhelmed with behavior issues this year. Um, that simple reflection tells someone that you heard what they were saying. Always start with that. So, what I'm hearing is, and then repeat what it is that you heard from that conversation. Another thing you could do is ask open-ended questions. Instead of yes or no questions, try which part of teaching feels the hardest right now? What kind of support would make this week easier? What do you wish people understood about your classroom? These questions create conversations, and conversations create connections. One other thing you could do is validate people's emotions. Teachers feel things deeply. They feel frustration and joy and stress and pride and all the things. So, meeting someone where they are means acknowledging those emotions because emotions don't disappear when they're ignored. They often just get louder. And that's big for us to understand as teacher leaders. You can't ignore the problem. It's not going to just go away, it's going to grow. Okay. And you want to kind of get ahead of it. Get in that problem as soon as you can and silence the noise with some of the tools that I've shared with you today so that we can get the teachers back on track. Create that type of culture and environment in your school. So let me tell you something. Let me tell you something that every teacher leader eventually learns. And this is really important. Teachers don't leave schools. They just don't. They don't leave schools. They leave the environments, though. They leave that school culture that doesn't align with them. They leave that environment that makes them feel sad, that makes them feel unheard and not seen and not appreciated. Okay, that's what they leave. So, and environments are shaped by the leadership, point blank and period. Okay. Imagine two different leaders responding to the same struggling teacher. Leader one says, you've been teaching 3 years. You should know how to manage this by now. But leader two says, this year seems heavier than usual. What's going on? Same situation, different leadership. One creates shame and the other creates growth. That safety and fear thing that we talked about earlier. If you don't remember anything, just remember that. If you're trying to be a leader in this space of education, how are you going to show up? How are you going to put humans first? How are you going to create an environment that creates safety and not fear? How are you going to move throughout the space where you're questioning, where you're reflecting on how you approach your tone? Okay. Are you listening? Okay. Or are you just responding? Do you care? Right? We've got to meet teachers where they are by not lowering the standards. Okay. But it's building the bridge that helps them to reach those standards. So if you're a mentor teacher, if you lead departments, if you coach educators, your job is not just instruction. Your job is human leadership because behind every classroom strategy is a human being trying their best, y'all. And sometimes what teachers need most is someone willing to walk beside them instead of pushing from behind. So, teaching has always been more than a profession. It's emotional labor. You know that. It's hard work. Heart work. It's purpose work. And if we want teachers to stay in this profession, we have to lead with humanity. Meeting teachers where they are doesn't mean leaving them there. It means walking with them step by step until they get where they're going. And that is the kind of leadership that changes the school. Thank you once again for listening to everything but the lesson plan. Please share this episode, like it, give us a rating. There was something else I was going to ask you guys to do. Oh, vote. Use the poll. Vote on the question as well. Y'all got to get into those questions. I am your host, Franchesca Thompson. And as always, keep thriving beyond the lesson plan.